Hey guys, welcome to another Gamebook video. Today we're going to be reading the Wizards, Warriors, and You book number 10 called Tournament for Terror. It says it has more than 20 role-playing adventures. And in this book we can choose between being either the wizard or the warrior. Let's go ahead and get started. On the first page here we have a description. Wizards, Warriors, and You is a game of fantasy role-playing. In each adventure you will choose to play the game as either the wizard or the warrior. Wearing the wizard's robes, you will summon up magical spells to fend off your enemies. Carry the warrior's sword, you will use your strength and brilliance in battle to prevail against the challengers. There are dozens of adventures in this book. If you choose to play the role of the wizard, all the mysterious spells in the Book of Spells at the back of this book will be at your command. Use them to guide the wizard past peril after peril. Then close the book and start all over again, this time as the warrior. Try your skill with all the weapons listed in the Book of Weapons, also found at the back of the book. No matter which role you choose to play, you will face new challenges, battle surprising foes, and make life or death decisions. And we've got a great artwork piece there showing the wizard and the warrior on horseback. I love that old drawing style. Introduction. One uses the secret incantations of the ancients, the mystical spells of the sorcerers, the magic handed down by the wise ones from the beginning of time. The other uses the deadly tools of the knight, the weapons of attack and defense, the sword and the shield, the bludgeon and the dagger, forged in precious metal, created for his hands alone, to save lives and to take lives. Together, this man of magic and this man of sword are known as the wizard and warrior. Together, they have used their wisdom, their courage, and their awesome skills to defend Castle Silvergate and the kingdom of King Henry, to triumph over foes from this world and beyond. By minstrel and by scribe, the tales are told of the foes they have faced, of the dragon Jabberah from the twilight world between good and evil, of the ghost knights of Camelot and the sorceress Morwena, of the creatures from the twisted forest and the dragon bats from the caves of eternity. But these foes are already vanquished, these triumphs a part of the past. Today brings a new adventure to the wizard and the warrior, and new adventure to you, for you are about to enter their world. You are about to play a part in it. Now you will be called upon to use your courage, your skill, and your wisdom. If you make the right decisions, the wizard and the warrior will triumph over all foes, and their legend will shine on through history. If you make the wrong choices, evil will triumph and their bright legend will dim. You will find yourself trapped in a world of ancient, unimagined horrors. Are you ready to venture forth? The journey into the world of Wizards and Warriors and You begins on page 1. Page 1. Every year on the first perfect day of spring, King Henry opened the gates and grounds of mighty Castle Silvergate for all to enter and celebrate in the games of the royal tournament. From dawn until dusk, Henry's finest knights tested their keen battle skills and their courage. And while the contests raged, Henry's loyal subjects cheered until they were hoarse and drank until they were silly. This year, as every year, the warrior, Henry's most fearless knight, received more cheers and roses than any other contestant. Yet as he prepared himself for the jousting contest, he felt uneasy, seeing the serious expression on the face of his friend, the wizard. "Tell me, wizard," the warrior said, "why is your face not like the spring sky, cloudless and sunny?" "My heart is troubled." No sooner had the wizard spoken than there was a sudden gasp from the audience watching the competition. The wizard and warrior drew toward the arena, where a knight in gold armor astride a white horse suddenly burst uninvited onto the field. With a single blow of his jousting pole, The Golden Knight knocked sturdy Sir Dwayne to the ground. The crowd booed and jeered the intruder, and in response the Golden Knight charged at young Sir Gallard, who should have been Sir Dwayne's opponent. "Who is this stranger whose armor glows like the sun itself?" people asked. "Why has he come to mock our games and our king?" others shouted. Sir Gallard fared no better than Sir Dwayne, and fell to the ground with bone-breaking force. The unknown horseman waved his jousting pole to the furious crowd and then seemed to wait for a new opponent. The day grew quiet. Only the moans of the two injured knights and the heavy breathing of the Golden Knight's steed were heard. "There is something evil in the air," the wizard said to the warrior. "We must be careful." "Intruder, now you will be taught your lesson," King Henry shouted. "There is one more you must challenge, one who has never been defeated on the tournament field or the battlefield." The warrior mounted his steed and turned to face the Golden Knight. Then the two horses charged, kicking up dirt and shaking the ground under the heavy riders. The crowd cheered as the warrior and the Golden Knight approached each other. They screamed as the two men collided thunderously. But unbelievably, it was the warrior who slipped from his horse and crashed to the ground with a swift blow from the Golden Knight's pole. The crowd's stunned disbelief changed to horror as the Golden Knight dismounted quickly and rushed toward the fallen warrior, not to extend a gracious hand of victory, but to cleave the warrior with a battle-axe that appeared in his hands from out of nowhere. With lightning-fast reflexes, the warrior rolled away from the axe blow and removed his helmet. "Unchivalrous villain, let me see the face of my attacker," the warrior shouted. In one swift movement he leapt and tore the golden helmet from the knight's head, but then instinctively the warrior jumped back and drew forth his sword of the golden lion. The crowd screamed at what they saw, for there was no face under the helmet. Instead, an eagle flew screaming from the opponent's suit of armor. It swooped at the warrior with his talons extended, narrowly avoiding a blow from the warrior's gleaming sword. Then it circled King Henry and disappeared into the cloudless sky. "What foul wizardry is this?" the warrior cried. "My lord, the suit of armor is empty. There is no man in it." The crowd parted to allow their king and his trusted wizard to join the warrior. Henry's face wrinkled, not with anger, but with grave concern, as he looked at the golden battle-axe that the warrior held in his hands. Its honed quarter-moon blade was etched with eagles carrying swords in their feet, and a similar eagle was etched on the empty armor's chestplate. "It is the crest of the island of Vulcan," the wizard said, running his fingers down the sharp blade without raising a drop of blood. "An island of sorcerers and mystics, your majesty," the warrior added. King Henry looked at his two most trusted servants without reply. The silence was finally broken with the arrival of Malcolm and Dryden, two of the guards from Castle Silvergate. They threw themselves immediately at their king's feet. "Your Majesty, we beg for your kind mercy, but we have failed you," Malcolm said. "While we stood our positions guarding the castle treasury, we heard many footsteps approach. Then we grew drowsy and slept. Most certainly we were put under a wizard's spell," Dryden said, his voice trembling in rhythm with his meaty hands. "We awoke just now to find your Majesty's treasury completely empty. You have been robbed." "Sorcerers steal my treasury, while another sorcerer defeats my best knights? It can't be a coincidence," King Henry said to the wizard. "No, it can't," the wizard agreed. "The Golden Knight was a clever diversion to keep us from noticing the thieves." "And to humiliate us," the wizard added. "Then you must go now to Vulcan Island and bring back my treasury and my honor," Henry said. "We will at all costs, my king," the warrior pledged. "No," the king said so sharply that the wizard's eyes widened with unfamiliar surprise. "Do not exact my vengeance. No harm must come to the sorcerer who wears the golden armor. Do only as I command you. Bring back my treasury and my honor. Go immediately." King Henry returned to his castle, and the crowds dispersed to talk about the day's events. The warrior and the wizard, too, discussed the strange happenings as they quickly prepared their horses for their journey. "The eerie sorcerers of Vulcan Island have always lived in peace with Henry's kingdom," the warrior said. "What brings them to such rude interference now?" "Only the sorcerers themselves can tell us that when we find them," the wizard said. "But I think there is another who shares the secrets of this mystery." "King Henry?" the warrior said. It was both a question and an answer, for the wizard had also noticed Henry's unusual behavior. "He commanded us as a king to return his treasury," the wizard said. "But he hid his heart when he ordered that the magicians should not be harmed." "For my part, that will be a difficult command to obey," the warrior said, mounting his horse. "Now the mission becomes your mission. You must choose whether to begin your journey as the wizard or the warrior. How will you seek to restore the looted treasury and defiled honor of your king? If you want to assume the role of the wizard, turn to page 10. If you wish to wear the warrior's armor and carry his enchanted sword, turn to page 12. We are going to pursue the warrior's path. We're going to turn to page 12. Instructions for the warrior. In how many dreams will you relive the disgrace of your defeat at the hand of the mocking, unknown warrior sorcerer? That's the question you must face every night until you satisfy your king and your heart that justice has triumphed in the tournament between good and evil. You must prepare yourself, mind and body, for your most treacherous and unpredictable adventure ever. This means choosing wisely the weapons you will need to face the sorcerers on the mysterious Vulcan Island. At the back of this book, on page 101, you will find the Book of Weapons. Turn to it now. Read about each weapon carefully, because you may take along only 3 in addition to the Sword of the Golden Lion, which is at your side night and day. When you have selected your weapons, go to page 16 and begin your journey. So let's turn to page 101. The Book of Weapons, for use only by the warrior. As the warrior, you may use all the weapons listed here, but remember, a great warrior uses wisdom as well as might. You can pause the video and read through the descriptions of the weapons here if you like. But I think what we're going to do is actually assume the role of the wizard. Now that we've had a look at the warrior, and let's turn to page 10 to assume the role of the wizard. Instructions for the wizard. Everywhere you look, you see signs that there are powerful wizards at work who aim to destroy the king. Before your journey is over, you may meet not only your greatest challenge, but your match in the world of magic as well. If you are to defeat your foes, you must be prepared. At the back of this book, on page 97, you will find a book of all the magical spells you can cast. Turn now to the Book of Spells. Read them carefully and master them quickly. Then turn to page 23 to begin your long journey from Castle Silvergate to the unknown mystical dangers that await you on Vulcan Island. Okay, let's turn to page 97 to look at our spells. The Book of Spells, for use only by the wizard. As the wizard, you may use any of these powerful spells, but remember, magic is mysterious and unpredictable. Use it wisely. Let's just read through the titles of these spells. If you want to, you can pause the video and read more about them, but the spells we have available at our fingertips, we have Move Time Forward, Forest Imps Freeze, Conjurer's Confusion, Invisibility, Sorcerer's Sleep, Command Animals, Shift Shape, The Wind, Flight, Merlins Fire, Shrink, and Combat Magic. Okay, it looks like all of these spells are available to us. We'll have to choose the right one at the correct time. So for now, let's continue our adventure. It says, now that you have studied the spells, begin your adventure on page 23. You and the warrior set out from Castle Silvergate, following villains who have gained a considerable lead on you. Still, you can be patient. One thing is certain. Your destination is the same as theirs, Vulcan Island. Your horses carry you swiftly through the dark forests to the north of the castle, where the paths are narrow and rutted, and the joys of spring are soon left behind. You are still feeling the slap of defeat, you tell the warrior above the horse's hoofbeats. Remember, my friend, it was a magician's hand wearing the golden glove in the tournament. It was not a fair match. Does that mean it did not happen? The warrior shouts. No, you say. It means that we have both been offended, and we must seek our victory together. Just at dusk, you approach the small village of Lagerspree, where a small inn offers food and fire. It is the last stop between Silvergate and the Moondish Moor, which you must cross to get to Vulcan Island. The warrior rides on, for a moment unaware that you have stopped. Then he gallops back to you. Our horses should rest for the night, you say. The journey becomes more difficult past the village. No, the warrior says, we must not stop if we are to reach Vulcan Island by daylight, when the sorcerers cannot hide from us. If you want to stop and spend the night at the inn, turn to page 26. If you want to ride on all night, turn to page 31. Well, it sounds like our horses are probably tired and it is late. We're going to heed the wisdom of the wizard and turn to page 26. You have stopped at the inn for comfort and rest, but you find it crowded and noisy. To get to a table by a blazing fireplace, you and the warrior must push past dogs and goats eating scraps from the floor. The men at the tables are peasant farmers with unwashed faces and worn leather shirts and breeches. But they are not too drunk to notice that a black-caped wizard and a heavily armored warrior have just entered. It occurs to you as you look around the room that perhaps the men, or sorcerers, you are seeking have stopped here to rest as well. As soon as plates of roasted meat are brought to you, a man with long, coal-black hair leaves his table and approaches you. I am Marquith, he says, shaking hands with you. His hands are soft and smooth. My companions are twin brothers, Norris and Bezieth. For years we have heard tales of a wizard and a knight who always travel together as the left and right hands of King Henry. If you are they, allow me to drink with you and toast your king. Norris and Bezieth set down 3 tankards of ale on your table. Marquith pushes one towards you and one towards the warrior, and raises his to drink. Do you think it is wise to drink with strangers? If you want to drink with Marquith, turn to page 29. If not, turn to page 34. No, we are not going to raise a drink with Marquith, whom we have just barely met and know nothing about. We're going to turn to page 34. Marquith's smile is friendly, but can you be certain you have any friends in Lagerspree? After all, it is a village the sorcerers also had to pass on their way to Vulcan Island. We will raise our tankards with you, but we cannot drink, you say. Our heads must remain clear for our journey. I hope this does not bring offense, the warrior says, looking thirsty at the goblets you push toward Marquith. Disappointment, but not offense, Marquis says good-naturedly. Whatever your mission, I wish you a just conclusion and bid you good night. As you and the warrior leave for your room, the warrior says to you, Do you sense evil stalking us in Lager Spree? No, my friend, you say, entering your room. But we mustn't forget that we are stalking it. Moments later, the midnight white moonlight falls upon the sword of the golden lion, which the warrior grasps in his hands as he drops off to sleep. Just before you close your eyes, there is a knock at your door, soft but insistent. As you open the door, a golden ball of fire bursts into the room, darting and whirling about like a blind bat. It sets your straw mattress ablaze and dodges the warrior's sword. For several minutes, you and the warrior are held captive by the spinning fireball. But then, just as suddenly, it flies from your room, slamming the door behind it. Turn to page 13. Does this mean the wizard knave we are seeking is here, in this inn after all? The warrior asks. Yes, you say. And I suspect we came dangerously close to drinking his ale. Who knows what would have befallen us if we had? So 'tis Marquis and the twins, the warrior says. Why did you suspect him? One wizard knows another, you reply. And besides, he was dressed as a peasant, but his hands were too smooth for such work. Let us search the room for Henry's treasury. Immediately, the warrior cries out excitedly. Yes, but we must go in unseen, you say. I will conjure a spell. But which spell will you use? There are two ways to ensure your safety in Marquis's room. You can put Marquis and the twins to sleep, or you can make the warrior and yourself invisible. How will you investigate Marquis's room? If you want to use the spell of invisibility, turn to page 48. If you want to use the sorcerer's sleep on Marquis and the twins, turn to page 55. Okay, so from our book of spells, I'm going to read the description of invisibility and the sorcerer's sleep. So, spell number 4, invisibility. A basic spell known even by apprentice sorcerers. You can use it to become instantly and completely invisible. A useful spell for fast escapes from desperate situations. It has one major drawback. You cannot predict how long the invisibility will last. It could last for several weeks or a few seconds. This spell can also be used to make an enemy or a friend invisible. And then spell number 5, a sorcerer's sleep. This spell can be used to put anyone standing within 100 feet of you to sleep immediately. The spell can work on one person or an entire army of people. Unfortunately, the length of time the victims will sleep cannot be predicted. It may be just a few seconds or for days. Another drawback, if the spell is incorrectly cast, it can put the spellcaster to sleep instead of its intended target. So it could backfire. I think normally I would pick invisibility, but I have it on good authority that we need to pick the sorcerer's sleep. So let's turn to page 55. In the dead of night, when only hungry night-prowling animals stalk, you and the warrior stand outside Marquis's room. You close your eyes and draw your cape around you, muttering the words that will put Marquis and the twins into a deep, dreamless sleep. When you are sure that the spell has taken effect, you creep into the room. Despite his armor, the warrior follows you soundlessly. You scan the room looking for any sign of the royal treasury. There are no piles of gold and silver in sight, but against the far wall you see a large wooden chest with brass handles on its sides. Take care, you say as the warrior moves toward it. The chest may be cursed. But on the other hand, the chest is the most likely place to hide the treasury. What do you want to do? If you want to open the chest, turn to page 64. If you want to look elsewhere in the room for King Henry's treasure, turn to page 59. we're going to look elsewhere in the room for King Henry's treasure. Let's turn to page 59. A chest in plain view, sitting in the middle of the room, would tempt one not as wise as you, but you seek elsewhere. Hidden in the corner, there's a closet covered by a drape of cowhide. It, too, may be cursed, so you approach it cautiously. When you lift the curtain and see the closet's glittering contents, you know it is indeed cursed. Cursed for the villains who have dared to fill it with King Henry's royal treasury. You close the drape slowly while your mind spins out plans to punish the thieves. But one of the time-rusted nails holding the curtain loosens and falls on the wood floor. Marquis and the twins bolt out of bed as if awakened by a rooster. It seems the spell of sorcerer's sleep has worn off. "Stop thieves!" Marquis shouts. "Prepare to meet thy death!" "You are the thieves!" you cry. "No wizardry can disguise your guilt!" The warrior brandishes his sword and, though outnumbered, prepares to defend King Henry's honor to the death. Turn to page 61. Grabbing the sword of the Golden Lion with both hands, the warrior charges at Marquis and strikes a powerful blow. But the sword cuts through the villains and through the twins as a hand passing through a cloud of smoke. Their images ripple, and then, untouched and unharmed, they laugh at you. "Warrior, sheath your sword and your anger," you say. "They are only sorcerer's illusions, and the treasury we see here is a vision as well. The real villains have escaped. Marquis cast this spell of images to delay us." You and the warrior rush to the stable to ready your horses. To your surprise, you find them saddled and held by an old man in fool's cap and slippers with bells that jingle every time he moves. "Who are you, jester?" the warrior demands. "Those that know me call me Barkin and say I'm a fool," the old man replies with a high-pitched laugh. "Those that don't know me don't call me by name. Look, I have dressed your horses with great care, so that you may ride in style to the chicken farm which lies outside of town." "We are after fouler game than chickens," you say. Barkin laughs again and says, "But chickens and eagles may be brothers if they come from the same nest." If you want to buy a chicken, turn to page 17. If you don't want to visit the chicken farm, turn to page 38. Well, it sounds like Barkin is quite a wise fool. I think he's onto something. He's steering us in the direction of the chicken farm. So let's go to page 17. Barkin leads you to a tiny shack. Inside, a dusty fat woman with long hair sleeps on the straw and dirt floor with 50 chickens. No two of them the same breed. "Wake up, Martha Hamper," Barkin says, giving the snoring woman a quick kick with a belled slipper. "Wake up and greet your customers." Martha Hamper lifts her head. Her hair is as flecked with straw and chicken feathers as it is with gray. "I beg you," she says after taking one look at you and the warrior, "I'm no chicken thief. I find all my birds. This I swear. I'm an honest woman trying to make an honest livelihood." Barkin just laughs and then gives Martha Hamper another kick. "We want the chickens. You know which one." Martha picks up her skirts and runs frantically through the squawking flock looking for a particular bird. Finally, she grabs one and hands it to the warrior. On the chicken's leg is a gold band etched with a picture of an eagle holding a sword. Let's turn to page 93. "Take the chicken, no charge," Martha says. "I told you I'm an honest woman." As soon as you step outside with the bird, it stares into your eyes and speaks to you. "Set me free, wizard," the chicken says. Do not take me back to the sorcerer, Marquis. If you let me go, I will tell you of a shortcut to Vulcan Island. Is Marquis a cruel master? The warrior asks, when the surprise has finally left his tongue. Do you think I have always been a chicken? The bird says in reply. Say no more. You have made the answer clear, the warrior says. The bird leads you through a forest that is not a real forest, but an illusion created by Marquis. The illusion enables Marquis and you to reach his island quickly. Once past the illusion, it is a short trip around the Moondish Moor to the water's edge that separates Vulcan Island from the land of honest men. Go now, bird, and enjoy your freedom, you say to the chicken. Even though I am cursed to spend the rest of my life as a chicken, the bird says, I do not envy your task on Vulcan Island. Good luck, wizard and warrior. Turn to page 66. Just beyond the Moondish Moor lies a body of water called Humor's Lake, so named because its character is inconsistent and unpredictable. You and the warrior must cross this lake to get to Vulcan Island. With so many boats docked on this side of the lake, the warrior says, surveying the beach area, we shall easily be able to cross the water tonight by moonlight. Just then a head pops up in one of the boats. It is Barkin, the wandering jester. He laughs a high-pitched laugh as he steps out and greets you. Barkin, you exclaim. You are here. We thought you were having chicken dinner with Martha Hamper. How did you get here? Through my own foolishness, I assure you, kind wizard, Barkin says, eating an apple noisily. Now I shall pose a question of my own. Do you trust these boats more than you trust your own strength? In other words, to keep a plan afloat, is it better to sink or swim? Barkin is talking nonsense, but you get the point. It might not be smart to take a ride in one of Marquis' boats. If you think it's safer to swim the waters of the humorous lake, turn to page 50. If you're willing to risk rowing one of Marquis' boats to Vulcan Island, turn to page 72. I personally would have trusted the jester and tried to swim for it and turn to page 50, but I have it on good authority that we must turn to page 72 and risk rowing one of Marquis' boats. Let's turn to page 72. You can sense no magic about the boats, so you and the warrior climb into one of them and prepare to row to Vulcan Island. At the last minute, Barkin jumps in as well. Since he adds a great deal of weight to the boat, he offers to lighten the load by telling you a story. 20 years ago, when King Henry first put on the purple lion-crested ring, he did not have a wizard and a warrior, Barkin says. Henry had a friend who embodied both. This friend was a fierce fighter and a crafty wizard, and he loved Henry like a brother. That man was Marquis. Your eyes flash as the pages of a history book, long kept secret to you by your king, are at last turned for your eyes. The warrior rows the boat with lips straight and tight. When Henry ascended to the throne, Barkin continues, Marquis asked to be made protector of the king. He wanted to guard the king using his double powers of chivalry and wizardry. But Henry said no. He feared that in a dangerous situation something terrible might befall Marquis, and his dear friend would be lost to him forever. Now I see why King Henry commanded us not to harm the thief of the royal treasury, you say. He knew it was Marquis. Go on to page 73. Against Marquis' pleas, Henry chose 2 people to be his protectors, a brilliant wizard and a fearless warrior, Barkin continues. And he asked Marquis to remain at his side to serve him as a royal advisor. But alas, kings can make mortal errors as well. Marquis bristled like a porcupine. He swore eternal hatred to the new wizard and warrior and angrily left the kingdom to become even stronger. One day he vowed he would return to prove that he could alone do the job appointed to two. The warrior has stopped rowing, captured by Barkin's story. The lake gently laps against the sides of the boat. How came you to know this story, Barkin? You ask. I have never seen you on the Silvergate grounds. 2 men left Silvergate the day you and the warrior arrived, Barkin says. Marquis, whose broken heart was cloaked with anger, and me, whose anger was cloaked in a broken heart. On that day I told my king that his fear of losing Marquis had made it come true. For my honesty, my king sent me to wander the kingdom. The warrior has resumed rowing, and soon the bottom of your rowboat scrapes the rocks near shore. You've arrived at Vulcan Island, the land where vengeful sorcerers live. Beyond the beach and into the thick trees, you see a small hut in one direction and a castle in the other. If you want to explore the hut, first turn to page 8. If you'd rather explore the castle, turn to page 19. We are going to explore the hut, and turn to page 8. A hut made of straw and mud is a commonplace sight, but it isn't common to see 2 sorcerers leave such a hut and disappear into a puff of smoke. Though they are gone quickly, you recognize them as Norris and Bezieth, Marquis' accomplices. The warrior steps towards the door, but Barkin, who'd been watching from behind a tree, turns and doesn't stop running until he's once again standing at the foot of the lake. Smashing the door with his shoulder, the warrior lunges into the hut. But it is the surpriser who is then surprised. Inside the hut, Marquis sits cross-legged on a straw mat on the ground. Amazingly, he holds no weapon and wears no sorcerer's cape. In fact, his only garment is a pair of woolen breeches. Good sirs, I am delighted to see you, although I must admit I didn't expect it, Marquis says. He only looks at you. With fireballs terrorizing our inns and poisonous mud rains falling from the clouds, it's hardly safe to travel these days. Or were you clever enough to avoid those hazards? We have not come to be graded like school children, the warrior snaps. We've come for King Henry's treasury. And you may have it, Marquis says, patting the straw mat under him with his hand. I am sitting directly above it. All you have to do to get it is make me move from this spot, if you can. Turn to page 15. Instantly, the warrior, heedless of your warning call, charges Marquis with the sword of the golden lion pointed true to the sorcerer's heart. The warrior thrusts and then gasps. His precious sword bends and crumples as though he had stabbed it into an invisible stone wall. Marquis' laugh sounds like the wings of 1,000 birds flapping. My friend, you say, taking the sword from the warrior's hand, and straightening it with hoarse mumbles and magic-inspired fingers. If you want the honey from the comb, first you must chase away the bees. But how will you chase away the bees? There's always Merlin's Fire, a sure way to destroy the hut, but will it have any effect on Marquis' invisible shield? Perhaps it's better to shrink Marquis, at the same time shrinking his magical powers. If you want to use the spell of Merlin's Fire on the hut, turn to page 30. If you want to use the shrink spell on Marquith, turn to page 22. Let's turn to page 100 and read the two spells. So, spell number 10 is Merlins Fire. This spell can be used to start a blazing fire on any object. It cannot be used on people or animals. The fire burns with intensity and cannot be extinguished until the spell is removed. This is a dangerous spell because the fire can spread out of control within seconds if the wind should change direction. Note, this spell is named for Merlin, but there is no known account of his having used it. Spell number 11 is the Shrink spell. This spell causes a foe or foes to shrink in size. Its effect is immediate and can be used on anyone or anything within 100 yards. As with other spells, it is impossible to predict exactly how small someone will become, or how long he or she will stay that way. We are going to use the Shrink spell, and turn to page 22. One minute Marquith is full size, but the next he is the size of a large dog, then a tall flower, and finally a squat frog. The tiny sorcerer is still sitting on the straw mat above King Henry's treasury as he begins to curse you in a squeaky voice. The warrior towers over him and raises his bludgeon high in the air. "Stop!" calls a voice behind you. Standing in the doorway to the hut is your sovereign, King Henry. "Warrior, remember my command. No harm is to come to him." In a flash, the shrink spell wears off, and Marquith returns to his normal size, laughing. "Henry, the years have made you grayer, but no wiser. I knew you'd come to me if I sent word that your precious wizard and warrior needed help," he mocks. "I should never have sent them to settle our unfinished business," Henry says. "But I feared if I came, I would have to kill you. I hope it is not so. Open your eyes, blind king, and see the truth in the words I spoke 20 years ago," Marquith says, throwing his arms into the air. "Now I shall prove to you that I am more powerful than your feeble wizard and warrior combined." Suddenly there is a flash of lightning, a clap of thunder, and a puff of smoke, out of which steps the Golden Knight on his white horse. Turn to page 49. When the puff of smoke clears, the setting has been magically transformed. The hut is gone, and the warrior and Marquith, in gold armor, are each astride horses, facing each other at opposite ends of a jousting track. King Henry sits on a throne made of saplings high above the field. As the contest begins, the warrior and the Golden Knight share only one thing. They are both fighting for their pride. This is the moment the warrior has been waiting for, a chance to unseat this warrior sorcerer once and for all. The horses charge, and the warrior aims his lance absolutely straight and true. But somehow again, Marquith sends the warrior to the ground with unseen speed. It wrenches your heart to see your friend lie motionless on the ground, but to interfere now would damage the warrior's honor and your cause. Marquith abandons his horse to finish his unfair match. His sword falls swiftly, but the warrior springs up, grabbing the arm that holds the razor sword. He holds the Golden Knight frozen. Locked hand to hand, each struggles to overpower the other. "Warrior, you are strong," Marquith shouts, unable to deliver the death blow. He lifts the visor of his golden helmet and says, "But see how my curse weakens you." Turn to page 68. But the warrior quickly brings his other arm into play. From behind his back he swings his mace with all his strength. The blow sends Marquith's golden helmet flying, and once again from the empty armor an eagle flies to freedom. But this time, Marquith's magical escape has played to your purposes. You quickly recite a spell of command animals. "Abandon your flight, great eagle," you shout. "Fly to your master." The bird fights the spell, struggling in the air as if against a strong wind. It looks back into your determined eyes and cries at you. "Fly to your master!" you shout again, fighting the power of Marquith's own wizardry. Finally, unable to break free, the eagle flies straight for your eyes, with talons flashing. As an eagle, Marquith cannot overcome your spell, so he will seek to destroy you while obeying your command. "Kill it!" the king shouts with a choked voice. At the last second, before the bird reaches you, you swing open your cape and fling it over the attacking eagle. The crazed bird flaps and rips at your chest as you press it tightly to you, almost as if in an embrace. There is silence when you relax your arms. The eagle falls from your cape to lie on the ground, and beside it the empty suit of armor falls away, revealing Marquith, weakened but alive. Turn to page 79. "Wizard, what have you done to me?" Marquith says in a voice weaker than he expected. "By killing the eagle, I have banished the spirit of magic, which you misused against my king," you say to Marquith. "You are no longer a wizard, but I have given you a chance to test your powers as a man." "My wizardry fueled my black hate for all these years," Marquith says. "I know not what to do now, that I can see myself in an unclouded mirror. Take us to King Henry's treasury. That is what we came for," the warrior says. "That you shall have immediately," Marquith says. "And you, great king, is there not something else I can offer you? My hand in a pledge of friendship?" Marquith asks hesitantly. "I will accept that pledge with my right hand, which holds apologies for my part in our quarrel those many years ago," King Henry says. With that, the two clasp arms like brothers again. Later, at a tournament in honor of your return to the kingdom, Henry toasts your health, with Marquith sitting nearby, saying, "Thank you, trusted wizard and warrior. Because of you, Silvergate is richer than before. You have restored to me my treasury and my treasured friendship. For that, I am eternally grateful." The end. So what should we rate this book? Well, here are some things that I think I liked about the book. Of course, I liked the illustrations throughout the book. They looked amazing, and the cover art was very well done. I liked the idea of the jester. He kind of played a main part throughout the book, Barkin. And sometimes his part was well written and enjoyable and fun. But I think they could have done a bit better with his part. I did like the kind of interesting part with the weird chicken lady. She seemed to have a bunch of personality. I thought that was a lot of fun. Some things I didn't like about the book. You know, I think the wizard and warrior characters are not particularly memorable characters. They have very little personality. They're kind of just stereotypical wizards and warriors. With a very kind of stereotypical plot. I didn't like how throughout the book the wizard and warrior were simply just named wizard and warrior, and at times as a reader it was a bit confusing especially when there were other warriors and wizards in the book, and so we're just constantly referring to these characters as wizard or warrior, and you know there are other warriors and wizards in the book. Now, I know why they did this. They wanted to kind of immerse us, the reader, and make it feel like we were in the place of the wizard or the warrior. But I don't think it works very well. Just give them a name. Simply call them Avatar or something. They should have some kind of distinguishing name as we're reading instead of just wizard or warrior. Just a bit annoying referring to the warrior as warrior, you know. Also, you know, the plot wasn't particularly interesting or well written, just kind of stereotypical. I didn't feel immersed in the story at all. I didn't feel particularly invested in finding out how things played out. It didn't really draw me in, you know. So why did I read this book then? Well, you know, I came across this book at an estate sale, I believe, picked it up. And it is from an era of the Choose Your Own Adventure popularity, and I think it deserves a place. It needs to be remembered. I couldn't find any other videos about it. So even though it's not a particularly good book, I could have probably read a lot of other books. But I did want to at least kind of get it out there that this book exists, and it was a thing, you know, and it just kind of telling its story. So I felt kind of the need to make the video in that way. So this is just my opinion. What do you think? If you made it this far into the video, please leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts on Wizards and Warrior number 6, Tournament for Terror. So what shall we rate this book? Wizards, Warriors, and You, Book 10, Tournament for Terror. What shall we rate this? I think I'm going to rate it 4 out of 5 Jester Caps. You know, it was enjoyable, but that's just what I feel like. 4 out of 5 Jester's Caps. Let me know what you think. Did you enjoy this book? What kind of rating would you give it? And guys, thanks so much for coming along with me on this adventure. I hope you enjoyed it. And the rest of the video here, I'm going to flip through the pages and just kind of create a document or a record of these pages. And I suppose somebody out there might want to pause the video or put it in slow motion. You could pause it and actually play through the book on your own if you like. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and do hope to catch you in one of the other videos.